Hello, my name is Raul Ribadav. I'm a wine educator, a certified port educator, and I live in Porto. Port wine is maybe one of my favorite beverages, and I think it was actually the first wine I drank when I was a child. So we are here at Ribeira in the downtown Porto. This is where the city of Porto starts, I would say. And it's actually where the lodges of port wine were in the past. Only after some centuries they have gone to the other side of the river in Gaia, where they are now and where you can see them. So Porto is a very famous city and is where I live. So today we're going to talk about how long port lasts in the bottle after opening. Well, I will start saying that there are three kinds of ports: white, tawnies and rubies. All of these wines in fact are oxidized wines. Well, ruby are the least oxidized wines, but in general port wine is a wine that ages in casks before going to the market. A good hint is to look at the cork. If you have one cork like this, which is called a bar top, it means that the wine is actually ready to be opened and can last in the bottle after being opened. These, I would say that the white wines have one period of time that you can have them open. The tawny is another one and the ruby is another one. I will explain that afterwards. This kind of cork, which is a regular natural cork, means that the wine will age in the bottle, and after opening it's a wine that will evolve like a still wine. Let's go and start with the white wines in the next minute. White port wine, it's made with white grapes, and most of the white port wines are wines that are meant to be drank young. So they will have this kind of cork, which means that after opening you can have them open for, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks on the extra dry style. But if you have more oxidized white ports, like the 10 years old, the 20 years old, or even the Colheita with a vintage date on the label, I would say that 3-4 months it's a safe bet. So they will have this cork, okay? Now I'm going to talk to you about tawny ports. The wine has been aged for a longer time in casks, so they will be very stabilized. They will have these kind of corks. These kind of corks means, as I told you before, means that the wine can be open and it will last in the bottle. How long it will last? Well, it depends on how older is the wine. The older the tawny, the more stabilized will be. So I would say that a safe bet would be starting at 2 to 3 months for a 10 years old or a 20 years old, and then a 30 or a 40 years old would last for 4, 5, 6 months even. Ruby ports. Ruby ports are wines, port wines that are made also with red grapes, but they are different from tawnies. And those ruby ports can be divided in two families. I will start with the vintage family. The vintage family is a very special port because it's a port that is intended to be bottled and can age in the bottle. They will have this kind of cork. This kind of cork, as I said before, means that the wine can be aged in the bottle, and once open, they will behave like a still wine. So expect to have a wine evolving in the bottle very fast in the first 2 days. So I would say after 2 days that the wine will not be the same as before. I would say so vintage ports is a port wine that you should open and then drink it. But actually I think you will not have that problem because they are very, very delicious. So these are vintage ports. There is also another category which is called late bottle vintage. Late bottle vintage were wines that were created to reflect the vintage style, but could be drunk in occasions not so formal, and after open they would last in the bottle. So most of the late bottle vintage would have this kind of cork. It means that they were filtered and they are stabilized, and after open they can last for, I would say, 2-3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks without noticing major modifications on the wine. But there are also some late bottle vintages that are non-filtered. They are called non-filtered or bottle matured vintage, late bottle vintage, or traditional late bottle vintage. These wines will have this kind of cork, like a vintage, and they will behave exactly like a vintage. So after opening, they will last in the bottle like a vintage port, so 1-2 days, and then I would say that they are not as expected when you have opened them 2 days before. So these are late bottle vintage traditional. Still talking about ruby ports, ruby standards and ruby reserve ports. They will have this kind of cork because they are intended to be drank fresh, of course, but they will last in the bottle. Not as the TAWNYs, because of course the TAWNYs are much more stabilized wines because they have stayed in the casks with oxygen contact for a longer time. Ruby ports, no. Ruby ports have a shorter time in cask, in larger casks, so the primary aromas are fundamental for these wines. So I would say that the safe bet for ruby ports would be 2 to 3 weeks, no more than that, because like that you will take advantage of all the primary aromas so phenomenal that ruby ports have.